As promised, today we are going to talk about the foundations of nutrition. Now, when you hear nutrition, it's such a broad and diverse topic, as you all know. And there is so much information on the internet, whether it's Googling information that you heard about this new crazy exciting diet, or it's hearing from these social media influencers that are pretending to be health gurus, knowing all things and to be correct. It can be really difficult to know what's true and what's reliable information. So today we are going to review some very foundational core concepts to help you understand what you're consuming and to help you take healthier steps in the right direction. Now, I know most of you on here know me, but for anyone who doesn't, because I am recording this, my name is Kimberly Flores. I am a board certified nurse practitioner, nutritionist, and CEO of Sophrosity Health. And I have lived an entire life of extremes, coming from a former eating disorder all the way over to the opposite extreme of being a competitive Olympic weightlifter. I have found the harmonious balance of moderation in all things, and that truly is the mission and basis of Sophrosity Health. Sophrosity being this character of excellence where you have the self-awareness to have mindful moderation in all things. So that's a little bit about me. And I like to always start off with my favorite quote: how you do one thing is how you do everything. So eat like you love yourself. Now, a couple of topics that we are going to touch on today. We're going to go through the components of what whole foods are, breaking down macronutrients versus micronutrients, what those words actually mean. We're going to go through whole foods versus processed foods, what it means, and how to spot the two differently, right? I'm going to walk you through balanced plate setup so you know exactly what your plate should look like in order to be considered a healthy, whole, unprocessed meal. We're going to touch on the cost of healthy eating. I am going to put to rest the myth that eating healthy is more expensive. And then I want to leave time for questions from you guys. And I have pulled just a couple of housekeeping things. I've pulled the questions that I did get on the registrations. I'm going to hopefully touch on them throughout. And if not, I'll address them at the end. And then as far as everyone who registered for the free nutrition consultation, if you are present, if they decide to show up, later on in this presentation, you will in fact be entered into the drawing. So I will be drawing it at the end. I have like a random name picker, and then I will be reaching out to the winner of that. So moving on. Before we dive in, I want you all to remember the facts. Certain food groups are often demonized for one reason or another, but it is important to maintain our focus on the facts and not the feelings around food. And that can get tricky because we all celebrate everything around food. We celebrate anniversaries, graduations, birthdays, all sorts of celebrations. We celebrate death, even the bad things usually are centered around food. So it's hard not to have that emotional component. But when we're looking at how to truly eat healthy for our bodies, we need to remember the facts. And that means that no food groups at all or are demonized. So let's dive in. Macronutrients. What does that actually mean? So, macronutrients are the largest molecules that make up our food. And those three large molecules are protein, carbohydrates, and fats. Each and every one of these macronutrients is going to provide a vital role in keeping your body healthy. Protein, as most of us know, helps to keep our muscles strong, right? But it's more than just our muscles. Protein is helping to playing a role in our growth, development, repair, and maintenance of all of our body tissues, not just our muscles, our skin, our organs, etc., all the way down to a cellular level. And how much do we need to eat? There is a range. And I know this was one of the questions that we needed to answer. It's zero point 0.8 to 1 gram per kilogram of ideal body weight. So for anyone taking notes, this is what you want to write down. Emphasis on ideal body weight. So here's an example. Let's say I weigh 150 pounds. That's going to put me right around 68 kilograms. How do you do that? You take how much you weigh in pounds, you divide that by 2.2. That's going to give you how much you weigh in kilograms. You're going to eat anywhere from zero point 0.8 to 1 gram per kilogram. So I, at 150 pounds, would be consuming anywhere from around 55 to 70 grams of protein daily. But let me tell you, especially if you are working on any sort of weight loss, fat loss goal, I oftentimes increase that number. Why? Because it's a lot easier to preserve muscle mass when you're eating more protein. And I know I'm kind of going off foundations and basics of nutrition right now, but I feel like this is necessary for you guys to hear. So what I usually tell my clients is, I want you to shoot for 100 grams of protein. And a lot of times after tracking for a couple of days, 100% of clients realize they are not eating nearly enough protein. I've seen people eating anywhere from 30 grams of protein per day to 50 grams of protein, but it's usually not enough. And it amazes me how much their appetite changes just by increasing their protein. So those are the ranges that you're going to want to stick to when setting up your plate and figuring out how much protein you need to eat. Now, carbohydrates are another macronutrient, and it also helps us to perform vital functions in our body. It helps to keep our heart beating. It helps to regulate our body temperature. It helps to digest our food. All of these processes that are happening within our body that we don't necessarily think about, all of it takes energy. And carbohydrates, which get broken down into sugar, are the primary source of energy that our body uses, especially our brain. So if you've ever tried to do a low carb diet or you've ever done keto, you know how terrible it feels in that week that you're going into ketosis. You have the brain fog, the fatigue, the headaches. You just don't feel good because your body is starved of the carbohydrates and the sugars until you get into ketosis, in which you're using the ketones for energy instead. Now, fats, I feel like don't get nearly enough credit, especially for females. They play a huge role in our hormone production, but they also help with cell growth, energy storage, and the absorption of certain vitamins A, D, E, and K. And so if you're not eating enough fats, you're not going to properly be absorbing these vitamins. Now, I gave you the ranges for how much protein you should be eating per day, but you'll notice I didn't touch on carbohydrates and fats. And that's because that's these percentages of carbohydrates and fats that you're eating daily, you can play around with it. For someone who comes to me and they have like a really strict workout schedule, they're doing 5 to 6 high intensity workouts per week, or they're serious about their weightlifting routine, I'm gonna bump up their carbohydrates a little bit more than their fats versus someone who has a desk job who doesn't really have an exercise routine. I may actually have a more balanced ratio of carbohydrates and fats. And that's why it's important to reach out to a certified professional like myself, because I take all the guesswork out for you so that all you have to focus on is actually eating the food, which is the fun part. So, moving on to micronutrients. You have the macronutrients, which are the large molecules, and then you have the micronutrients. And micronutrients is this big umbrella term for all of the vitamins, the minerals, the trace elements, phytochemicals that all work very specific functions in our body. Now, with the exception of vitamin D, because vitamin D is technically a hormone and not a vitamin, our bodies do not produce these micronutrients. Thus, we have to obtain them through our food. And so I'm not going to go through every single bullet point on here, but just to kind of show that micronutrients are just as important, if not more important than the macronutrients. They're all serving different functions. For example, vitamin C is necessary for collagen production. And it also acts as an antioxidant. So it breaks down free radicals that causes inflammation and precancerous cells in our body. And we also know, most of us know, that calcium is important for bone health. Iron is important for transporting oxygen throughout our body to different organ systems and different cells. So each one of these is going to play a different role within our process. And the problem, especially in America, is that we are eating more food than we ever had, and we are malnourished. How is the population, more than 50% of our population is obese, and yet we're lacking in all of these nutrients? And that's because of the standard American diet, which is so conveniently named SAD, ironic and true, because they ultra process these foods and all of these micronutrients get removed or were never in them to begin with because it's not actually real food. You look at the ingredients list and there's not one single food that hasn't been genetically modified or engineered. And so this is where, as a medical provider, I used to tell patients, if you're eating a really well-balanced diet, like you should be okay. You don't need a multivitamin, but here are the facts. Even if you're eating a diet that's 90, 95% whole unprocessed foods, you still might be lacking in some of these micronutrients because our land is over farmed and they don't rotate crops. They don't fortify our soils anymore. So even if you're eating, say you love carrots, the carrots you're eating today are less nutrient dense than they were 30, 40, 50 years ago, just because our soil has become so depleted. And so now I am a fan of multivitamins to make up for the shortage of everything that you may not be getting in your foods. But here's my key point. There is no supplement that is ever going to be better than eating the real thing. Because when you eat the real foods, you're going to get the micronutrients in just the right proportions. You're going to have the added fiber, you're going to have the added water, and it's going to be better absorbed through your body. So I'm not here to say that everyone should be on a multivitamin, but it could be helpful in addition to eating these micronutrient rich fruits and vegetables. Any questions so far? I know these past two slides have a lot of information in them. Anybody? Okay, I'm going to move on. So you go to the doctor, they say, you know what, your blood pressure is up, you have diabetes now, your cholesterol is high, you need to start exercising, and you need to start eating whole foods. What does that mean? Let's talk about it. When we say whole foods, we mean foods that are minimally processed, They are nutrient dense, which I just talked about how they have all these micronutrients in them, and they are usually single ingredient. So let's break it down. Minimal processing, what does that mean? That means if I go to an apple orchard and I pick a tree out and I put it in my mouth, it's going to be the same. It's going to be the same from when it was on the tree to the time it gets to my mouth. Or if you want to look at it this way, from the time they pick the apple off the tree to where you pick it up from the grocery store, you go home and you eat it, it looks the same. It hasn't been processed at all, minus, washing it, right? But it looks exactly the same. There's no added ingredients. That's what I mean by minimal processing. And if you compare that to something like applesauce, they pick the apple off the tree, but by the time you get the applesauce from the store, it does not look the same. The applesauce might have apples in it, but it's in a completely different form, right? Then moving on to nutrient density. Again, whole foods are going to have, they're going to be rich in all these essential vitamins, nutrients, fiber, antioxidants. Whereas if you were to buy a bag of chips, it's not going to have much iron or vitamin A or calcium or vitamin D. There are some processed foods where they are fortifying now just because they know that Americans aren't getting enough of these, but they are going to be naturally occurring in whole foods. So you don't have to worry about fortified packaging, right? And then single ingredient, again, if I go back to the apple, picking the apple off the tree, what are the ingredients in an apple? Apple. But if you compare it to applesauce, a typical applesauce from the grocery store, and you flip that boy over, it's going to say apples, sugar, high fructose corn syrup. It's going to have additives, preservatives. It might have coloring in it. All these extra ingredients that aren't apples. Now, can you get applesauce from the store that is just ground up apples? Absolutely. Same thing with nut butters. If you go to like Sprouts or Whole Foods, you can buy just the nuts and they're ground up applesauce. It's just apples, no added sugars, anything like that. But you've got to look hard and you got to flip it over and you have to be able to read the ingredients list and the nutrition label. So that is the definition of what whole foods means. When your doctor or your provider is saying, hey, I need you to eat more whole foods, that's what it means. So now we're going to play a quiz since you know what whole foods are. A bowl of strawberries. And you guys can just call this out. Is this whole food or is it processed? I know it's not your
Whole
question.
food.
Oh,
Whole food. Perfect. Now, what about this tasty looking strawberry shortcake?
The
Whole food.
strawberries are whole, but the rest of them.
yeah.
Correct. Because it has the added whipped cream and the shortbread, this is technically a processed food, but it does have a whole food with the strawberries in it. What about salmon?
Whole food.
Perfect. What about fish sticks?
Good.
Processed.
Processed. I don't even need to show you guys the ingredients list. You can just tell with the breading that this is going to be a processed food. It's a stick. It's a fish that's in the form of a stick. So it had to go through some processing to get into a completely different form, right? Now, this one is a little bit trickier. Whole food or processed?
Whole food.
Bingo. Let me tell you why. I've had people say that this is processed before, and technically it is because it gets deshelled at the factory and they added salts and they roasted it. So technically it has gone through a few rounds of processing, but when you look at the nut itself, it's still in its very original form. It looks exactly as it did when it was still in the shell, when it was still in a, do they come off trees? Pistachio tree, pistachio bush? However, pistachios are grown, I don't even remember, but it's still in its natural state. So this is going to be considered a whole food. Now, final question, whole food or processed? 100%. And I gave you the ingredients list to know that Jif is definitely not one of those brands where it's just ground up peanuts and that's it. They like to add lots of processed additives and hydrogenated vegetable oils and things that are probably not the best for myself. And let me be very clear, because I actually have a jar of Jif in my pantry as we speak. I'm not demonizing any of these foods, but it is important to be educated and understand what you are eating so that you have educated options and decisions to make. You have the choice on what you're going to eat and you understand why you're making that choice. Now, moving on to balanced plate setup. This is ideally what all your meals are going to look like. This is going to help you hit that protein goal with all your meals and hitting your daily goal. It's also going to help you stay full so that you're not snacking in between all of your meals. And I'm going to talk about the study that I read a little bit later on the other slide, but I was listening to this great podcast and he was talking about this report that was done through Business Insider, through the Bureau of Labor Statistics. And they were saying about how people who buy more processed foods tend to snack more. And those who are snacking more are eating a whole entire meal's worth of calories extra per day. So a lot of people think, oh, just a bite here, a bite there, a cracker here, finishing my kid's plate as my own snack, whatever. It's not going to hurt me, but those calories do add up. And at the end of the day, you're still putting yourself in a calorie surplus. You're eating more food. So if you're setting your plate up just like this, you're much, much less likely to snack between meals. And I've given you guys the visual of how to hand measure these portion sizes. So you can see, and it might be a little bit tiny for you in your screen, but right here where my clicker is, if you take a whole piece of protein and you measure it to the entire palm of your hand, that's going to be roughly 3 to 4 ounces of protein. So that's going to be anywhere from 20 to 30 grams of protein per meal. When you're going to do your carbohydrate source, you want to do like a cupped hand. So if you cup your hand, it's as much that will fit inside that cupped hand of yours. And then of course, half your plate should be fruits and or vegetables. And then when you're doing fats, you're going to look at 1 thumb. So whether that's, you know, a fourth of a cup of nuts or a tablespoon of olive oil or a tablespoon of nut butter, that would be an example of how to set up your plate with all of the macronutrients so that it is balanced. You have whole foods, you're getting tons of micronutrients from the fruits and veggies. Any questions? No? Okay, we're going through this faster than I thought we would. This is good. We're making good timing. Okay, so this is the study that I wanted to talk about. So I'm giving you guys a side-by-side example of how it is not more expensive to eat healthy. And according to a 2022 Business Insider article that was quoting and sourcing the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the average household spends about $7,023 per year on food. Out of that $7,023, around $3,000 of that is spent eating out. So that's about 43% of your total food expenses are spent eating out. And when they did a side-by-side comparison, you can see the difference in cost of eating out. Using the same exact meal, and they quoted, I think it was like an 8-ounce piece of lean steak, a cup of rice, and some mixed vegetables. If you were to cook this meal at home, and they were basing this out of New York, which is a relatively expensive state to live in, it's going to cost you an average of $5.75 to create this meal at home. Versus if you were to get the same exact meal in a restaurant, you're going to spend roughly $10 more. And they quoted it around $27 for the same exact meal, same exact amount of steak, same exact rice. You know, obviously the restaurant one's probably going to have more butter, more sauces and things like that, which just ends up making it more high calorie anyways, but you can see the cost difference if you were to make it at home. And they figured that households who were cooking at home 6 days per week versus households where they were eating out 6 days per week, they're saving about $150 per month just by eating at home. And honestly, I think that that's a severely underestimated number, because I know when me and my husband, just the two of us, go out, we're never spending less than $100, especially now with inflation, versus us cooking the same meal at home. I'm spending way less than 20 bucks for both of us. So this is really eye-opening, not just from the extent of eating healthier and making healthier choices does not have to be more expensive, because guys, it's not like you have to go to Whole Foods and shop at Whole Foods all the time. It's not like 100% of your fruits and vegetables need to be organic. You can make healthier choices without having to break the bank. And this is a prime example of how and why. Now, if you learned nothing from this talk today, I wanted to leave you with a couple of key points, little tiny changes that you can make in your day-to-day life that are going to have massive impact. First, that's by adding in some sort of fruit or vegetable with every meal that you have. Start by packing your lunches instead of eating out on your lunch breaks. That one meal can save you $100 a month, depending on what you eat. And then finally, trying a new fruit or vegetable that you've never had before, or preparing a fruit or vegetable that you've had, but cooking it in a different way. Like, I've had grilled pineapple before, but I actually grilled my own pineapple for the first time last week, and it was so good. Like, just by itself, like cutting a slice and eating it just straight off the grill as dessert. It was so incredibly delicious. And I am mind blown that I am almost 40 years old and it's the first time I'm ever grilling my own pineapple. And that's a great example of how just try a new food or try the same food, but eat it a different way. Now, if anyone is here and they're still overwhelmed or confused by what they need to be doing, they've been trying for a while to get healthier on their own and it's just not working, I wanted to give you guys a heads up that we are starting our second cohort of group coaching on June 3rd. So it's right around the corner. We are going to provide you with customized nutrition plans, teaching you ongoing about the micronutrients, the macronutrients, everything we talked about today. There are going to be tailored workouts just for you. And I know a lot of clients that come to me, they either don't like to go to the gym or, you know, they already have, they take classes, whatever have you. Those tailored workouts will be available in case you did want to use them. And most importantly, we are going to be focusing a lot of energy and attention on the sustainable behavioral changes, because we all know how easy it is to follow a meal plan for 30 days and lose the weight, but the hardest part is keeping it off. And this isn't just about losing weight per se. It could be any health related goal or just making these changes in the types of foods you're doing. If we don't change the mindsets and we don't change the actual behaviors, they won't stick. And so that's a really big component of our coaching program, is to teach you how to shift that mindset, to change those behaviors and keep them for good. So it's not a temporary thing. So if you want more information, you can scan the QR code. This takes you to our website. It takes you to the group coaching if you have questions about that. And I think I have linked one of my social media platforms so you can follow me there. So any questions that I have not answered for you guys? Go ahead, Monica.
Can you tell me your thoughts on protein shakes?
Yeah, I'm for
Do you
that.
like them? Do you not like them? What kind? Like, what's best? Give me a little insight.
Okay, so it would be ideal if we could hit our daily protein 100% from whole foods, right? Like that's what we should practice. That's what we should preach. But in reality, if you're eating 100 plus, like I know I eat about 150 grams of protein per day, it can be really difficult to get 150 grams in chicken. Like, come on, like I want to vomit. So sometimes I do have to supplement, and that's perfectly okay. And I can tell you, majority of the clients that come to me when they initially start increasing their protein, they're not getting it 100% from whole food sources. So we do utilize supplementation. It's just a matter of understanding there needs to be balance and that you shouldn't be 100% dependent on protein shakes. Now, when you go down to like the brand and the type, that becomes a slippery slope because, for example, I like Premier protein shakes. They're pre-made, they taste amazing, they're portable. I don't have to make it, and because some of the powders are gritty, etc. Some people will bash Premier protein because it has carrageenan in it, even though it's not the denatured carrageenan, which is the actual pro-inflammatory carcinogen. But people, fake news, they hear one thing and they take it and they run with it. Premier protein's not bad unless you have sensitivities to it. I also use powders. I usually drink a casein protein before I go to bed, and I'm blanking on the brand right now. I know NutraBio is the brand I really like of their whey protein for the powder. What are some other Optimum? Oh my gosh, Optimum. Oh my gosh, Tesla. I'm blanking. Optimum Nutrition, right? ON.
I mean, there's so many.
Optimum Nutrition is like the OG of protein powders. They've been around forever. I think they're GMP certified, so they have a certifying body that comes to their facility to monitor to make sure there's not like illegal additives in it. And they're affordable. You can find it at Sam's. You can find it at Costco. You can buy it online. It really comes down to what you like the taste of. I can't stand people who preach like you have to eat or drink this one thing, even if you hate it. No, because that's not sustainable. I can't force you to eat or drink anything. Finding what you like, making sure it's hitting the targets that you want to hit. So for example, Premier Protein is 30 grams of protein per shake. That's how much protein I should be eating in every meal. So it lines up perfectly versus if I were to drink a protein shake that say had only 20 grams, I would have to remember in the back of my head, okay, in my next meal, I need to make sure I add an extra 10 grams of protein because I didn't get it out of this protein shake, if that makes an example. And that's part of, I know someone had asked the question, eating healthy on the go. Like if I'm going out on a Saturday morning and running errands, I always have a protein shake with me because it'll buy me like 1 to 2 hours of not getting hangry if I drink a protein shake while I'm out. Did I answer?
Yeah, thank you. Do you have an opinion on like plant-based protein versus not plant-based protein, or just really find what you like?
Find what you like and find what you tolerate. With
Okay.
a lot of people who do have the dairy sensitivities that they may not be able to tolerate dairy-based proteins. The only downfall is the plant-based proteins are not just a solid source of protein. Like they usually have more fats and more carbohydrates than say like a whey-based protein. The other thing is that the only plant-based protein source that is going to most closely mimic a complete protein source like whey protein is pea protein. So I know there's a couple of different sources out there. Pea protein is the closest. It has all of the essential amino acids. But if you buy it in powder, it's terrible. Like it's awful. I've tried it. Like I went on a plant-based kick. I was like, let me try this for a while when I was having severe gut issues. And it's just really hard to stick with because it didn't taste good. So when
Mhm.
people ask me what they should do, my first thing is you got to drink and consume what you like first and foremost, because nothing else is going to be consistent.
Can I ask another question? Sorry, I feel like I'm
We've
taking
got
over
plenty
the
of
world here.
time. Yeah.
So collagen
Mhm.
powder that has protein in it, does that count the same?
Well, depending on the protein source they use for the protein powder, But again, collagen in itself is not a complete protein. It's missing one of the essential amino acids. It's missing tryptophan. So collagen, because I hear a lot of people, oh, well, I drink collagen and it says it has 10 grams per scoop and it's a tiny little scoop only. Yeah, but that's not a complete protein. So you can drink it for the other health benefits, but I don't want that counting towards your total daily protein target.
Well, damn. Wrong answer, Kim.
I'm sorry.
Wrong answer.
I only speak facts. I have to be evidence-based. And that's even more
Man.
key. That kills me because I didn't know that they were mixing collagen with actual protein powder. Like if they were to combine it, how are you to separate out how much of that scoop is true protein and how much of it is collagen?
Man, I thought I was killing it because I just put it in my coffee and I was like, dude, I got 20 grams of protein just in my coffee. I'm awesome. You just ruined my life, Kim. You just
Listen,
ruined it.
Premier Protein, if you like it, like that's where
Oh.
it's at with coffee creamer.
So have you
Yeah.
ever, so if you take the caramel
Mhm.
Premier Protein, put it over ice and put 2 shots of espresso in it, it tastes just like a caramel macchiato from Starbucks.
Chef's kiss. Chef's kiss.
Mhm.
Like I love it. I love it so much. The collagen, I don't want you to feel bad though, because you're still getting the collagen benefits. Collagen can be very beneficial to supplement with. You just technically weren't getting the whole protein. You weren't getting all the building blocks. You're a few building blocks short.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
one of those clients that would not pass the protein test.
That's why I exist, to tell you.
Yeah, I just recently started doing a new workout at 9 Round. Not sure if you're familiar, but it's like kickboxing, a 30-minute
I saw your
thing.
post about it. Yeah.
Yeah, and so the trainer was like, "How much protein do you eat?" I was like, "Plenty. I'm good." And then I actually counted. I was like, "Wow."
Yes.
And I'm 6'1", like I'm a solid like 200-pound human. And so I mean I clearly need like 100 grams plus of protein a day. Yeah, epic fail over here. And
Yeah.
now I thought I was killing it with my collagen. I was like, cool, I'll just do that. That's fine. Now I gotta rethink all of my life decisions, Kim. Thanks for nothing.
Sorry,
Just
I
kidding.
just came here and busted your bubble, but I do want to point out that's why it is so very important to track your food. I have plenty of people tell me like it's too much work, it's too much time, whatever. I'm like, I understand that, but you have to have a basic awareness of what you're putting in your body if you want to make any changes at all. Because just like you said, someone asked you how much protein you ate, and you're like, oh, I'm doing great. And then you track it for a full 24 hours. You're like, I in fact am not doing great. I thought I was
Yeah.
not.
Not even halfway there. Not even.
Yep. And that happens 100% of the time. I know Tesla.
She's like shaking her head at me. She's like, oh gosh, this lady.
No, because every, I'm talking not even 99%, 100% of the clients who come through us do the exact same thing. Like, yeah, I'm great. And then, okay, I'm like, okay, track and send it to me. You are not doing great. You are about halfway there. Like you said, you're about 50% of where you need to be. And then it's a matter of the next 2 to 3 weeks, you increase your protein. And then it's, I'm so full. And I'm like, that's the whole,
I know. I'm like, how do I even eat that much protein?
your body adjusts.
Tell you.
Yeah, your body adjusts. And because protein is the most and I didn't tell this earlier, because protein is the most thermogenic macronutrient, you could still be eating the same set calories every day, but increase your protein amount. Like the percentage of those calories is more protein than before. You can simply lose weight just because you ate more protein, even though your calories haven't changed at all. And you'll improve muscle mass, thus increasing your metabolism, making it even faster. It's a win-win situation. And I didn't talk about the perimenopausal benefits and osteoporosis and how we need to increase our protein and get impact activities. Like I didn't even go into that. Like that's just a whole nother talk in itself. By the way, I loved your series on hormones this week. I watched every single one. She doesn't why I'm fat because I don't have any testosterone in my body right now.
Yeah, no, testosterone is a struggle for women.
Yeah.
And I mean, just like you touched on vitamin D, it's like if you aren't on a vitamin D supplement, you are deficient.
No.
I promise you. It's funny. Like obviously, I work in the healthcare world, and we have these talks with patients all the time. Like, listen, you can't get stuff from the soil anymore. Like, it just doesn't exist. It's not an option. Like, you have to either eat a crap ton of really high. Like, if you're growing it in your backyard, it might be okay. But if you're buying it from anywhere else, you are not getting what you need. So Kim, this has been really great. And you need to like publish this to the world, and everyone needs to know this information. So
hey there. I hope you found this presentation helpful and you learned a lot from it. If you're interested in working with me one-on-one, you can scan the barcode here. That is going to take you to a couple of different links. There's an opportunity to work with me in our group coaching cohort that is starting very soon, or you can work one-on-one. So just visit the barcode here, or I have our website listed down in the description. Hope to talk to you soon.